Lomography reached out and asked if I wanted to shoot some of their new LomoChrome Classicolor 200. I said sure, and they sent me 2 rolls. In order to maximize the film, I cut the rolls in half so I could mess around a little bit more, which explains why these are short rolls. At first glance, this looks like any other C41 film, but when you look at the scans, you get to see some of the character. The reds and oranges seem to pop compared to the blues and the greens. And there's a little bit more grain than expected, especially for a 200 speed film, but I think it kind of adds to the whole vibe. And of course I trichromed it. This film has a desaturated kind of slightly contrasty look, which reminds me of bleach bypass film, which is a perfect segue to the next roll. This roll had issues. Look, I was just trying to bleach bypass this roll, but due to some circumstances, things didn't really work out. The camera back might have opened up at some point, destroying half of the roll. Next, when I was developing this film, I was on autopilot and I accidentally poured Blix. For those unfamiliar, bleach bypass, as the name suggests, bypasses the bleach. Blix is just bleach and fixer, the same bleach that removes all the silver off the film, the silver that makes bleach bypass. So I poured Blix in there and I caught myself about 30 seconds in. I emptied the tank and I poured regular fixer in, but that 30 seconds was long enough for it to just wash off all the silver. So to no surprise, when you look at the scans, it looks normal. Maybe if you just squint just right, you might get some hints of bleach bypass, but nah. Another confirmation is that these were scanned with digital ice on. Since bleach bypass leaves a layer of silver, digital ice tends to freak out. Here's an example of bleach bypass film with digital ice on. You can see these weird artifacts around the edges. But this film didn't have any of that, which leads me to believe that the quick dip in Blix was just enough to get rid of all that silver. But now I guess I know. So this really wasn't bleach bypass, this is just more of an extension of shooting it normally. Next up, more issues. This roll was pushed 3 stops. Right off the bat, there's some weird light leak going on, or maybe some light piping. I'm not really sure what happened. But looking at the scans, only this frame has an obvious light leak. The rest has a slight red wash, but only really noticeable in the shadows. While I'm pretty sure it's the light leak, it could also just been because, it was pushed 3 stops. The shadow is getting crushed, the grain is obvious, and the colors are starting to shift. And it's becoming contrastier. It definitely benefits from flatter lighting, whereas something that's very contrasty ends up looking like this. But overall, as long as you keep your expectations in check, this is kind of usable. Finally, I cross-processed the last roll in E6. Now, just for some context, typically when I cross-process C41 film in E6, I either get extremely blue or orange tinted positives. While you're able to scan them and maybe color correct them a little bit, but as just a regular positive, I wouldn't consider this to be usable. So imagine my surprise when I saw what Classicolor 200 looks like cross-processed. While it does lean to kind of this orangey red, it's still actually pretty usable as a positive. By no means are these true to life colors. They're more like old slides you find out of a shoebox. You kind of get that warm, kind of old sun-bleached print vibe. Funny enough, when you scan these in and correct the color, it just kind of looks like regular Classicolor 200. One thing I forgot to mention, when cross-processing C41 film in E6 chemistry, you need to overcompensate by 2 stops somewhere. You could either push 2 stops in development or overexpose 2 stops in camera. For this roll, I overexposed it in camera and rated it at EI50. Anyway, this was a fun film to shoot. It doesn't seem all that bothered by all the stupid things I tried, so that's a plus. So anyway, big thanks to Lomography for sending me a few rolls. If you have the opportunity to shoot this stuff, go for it. And I feel like if Lomography marketed this as like a 50-speed slide film and called it vintage chrome or something, it would sell. Just a thought.